Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going on a wild ride, exploring goblins, those creatures that have been lurking in folklore and fiction for centuries.
Oh, yeah, they've really captured imaginations for a long time.
That's for sure. And we've got some intriguing excerpts from this online encyclopedia to help us along the way.
Should be a fun exploration.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it. What exactly is a goblin? Are they just mischievous little pranksters, or is there a darker side to these guys?
Well, that's a great question, and I think a lot of people think they know what a goblin is, but, their abilities, their temperaments, even how they look, it really does vary wildly depending on, where the story comes from.
It's like they can't be put in a box, right?
Exactly, and I think that's part of what makes them so interesting. They represent the unexpected, that kind of wildness that we sometimes like to pretend isn't there.
I like that. So to really understand goblins, it seems like we need to take a trip through different cultures and their own kind of goblin lore, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm ready when you are. Where should we start?
Well, let's start in the British Isles. The term goblin was often used as kind of a catch-all term for like any troublesome spirit, you
Huh.
know? Like imagine a time when people blamed any little thing that went wrong on these creatures. Like, you spilled milk. Oh, must be the goblins.
So they were like scapegoats for anything annoying.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, and how about if we hop over to France? What are goblins like over there?
Well, in France, goblins start to get a bit more of their own personalities. For example, Norman goblins, they're actually connected to this specific devil that was said to haunt the Evreux region.
So a devilish goblin. That's a bit more intense than spilled milk.
Yeah, it is. And then, you head over to Brittany and you've got the Corrigans. Now, these guys are playful tricksters, totally obsessed with treasure hunting and pranking people.
Sounds like every region has its own unique goblin recipe.
That's a great way to put it.
But let's keep moving. What's waiting for us on the Anglo-Scottish border?
Well, there you'll run into the red caps. And these are not your friendly pranksters. No, they're bloodthirsty and pretty brutal. And it's said that their caps are actually dyed red with the blood of their victims. But let's not forget about England's hobgoblins. Unlike the red caps, they're known for just harmless pranks and sometimes even being helpful around the house.
Oh, so like a helpful house spirit. I could
Yeah.
use one of those.
Yeah. Think of Shakespeare's Puck. Mischievous, but, ultimately well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're heading over to Germany, right? What kind of goblins are we going to find there?
Well, in Germany, you've got two very different types of goblins. First, you have the Earl King. This is a sinister figure who lures children away, and it often doesn't end well for the kids.
Okay, that's a scary thought.
It is. Then you have the kobolds, who are often found in mines and homes. They can be helpful, but they're also really easily
So
offended.
you got to be careful around them.
Exactly. And it's interesting that their name is actually connected to the mineral cobalt.
Oh, wow. So they have this deep connection to the earth.
That's right. And speaking of connections to the earth, let's head over to Spain and Portugal. There you'll find the Trasgos. These are mischief makers, but they're also known for finishing any chores that you leave undone.
Wait, so they're like a mischievous cleaning service. I'm listening.
Right. It's a pretty interesting mix of helpfulness and mischief.
I mean, it does seem like that's something we see a lot with goblins, isn't it? They're not just good or bad. They're a mix of everything.
Just like us, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. It seems like goblins are just about everywhere, right?
They really are.
With every culture adding their own spin on the whole goblin thing. But this isn't just about, where they come from geographically, is it?
No, not at all.
We've also got to see how goblins show up in, like, fiction, books and pop culture and all that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They've made quite a journey from those early folk tales into the world of, modern stories and media.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading those spooky stories as a kid with the goblins always hiding in the shadows up to no good.
Yeah, classic images. And those classic stories, too, like The Princess and the Goblin or The Goblin Pony and, The Benevolent Goblin even. They really cemented goblins in our minds, didn't they?
They really did.
Yeah.
It's wild how those stories just keep getting passed down.
Yeah.
But are there any, like, lesser-known goblin tales that might surprise people?
Oh, tons. Goblins are a global phenomenon, remember? You got Estonian folklore, Dutch legends, even a Moldovan gypsy story about a king gob. Don't forget about those chilling Scandinavian tales either.
Wow.
Yeah, you get goblins in Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish fairy tales sometimes hanging out with trolls and other creatures.
That's like a whole hidden world of goblin stories just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And it shows how these creatures have really gone beyond cultures, They become like this universal symbol of mischief and mayhem.
I love that. And speaking of mischief and mayhem, let's talk about modern fiction. Tolkien he had a big impact on how we see goblins now, right?
He did. In fact, he used the terms goblin and orc kind of interchangeably, especially in his early writing. Like, goblins were almost the early prototypes for those epic orc armies he created.
Interesting. So he kind of took those folklore creatures and gave them a whole new level of depth.
He did. He envisioned them as this underground race obsessed with wealth and power.
So from Tolkien's books, we move into the gaming world and things get even more intense, right?
They do. Remember Dungeons and Dragons?
Of course.
Well, they took those Tolkien-esque creatures and came up with the term goblinoids.
Goblinoids. That sounds kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it basically includes goblins and their relative, like hobgoblins, bugbears, and all those. They became like the classic bad guys in those dungeon adventures.
The ones the heroes had to outsmart.
Exactly. And they didn't stop there.
How about the goblins in Harry Potter?
Oh, yeah. The ones running Gringotts Bank.
Right. They're super smart, skilled craftsmen, very protective of their gold. Nothing like those bumbling fairy tale goblins. Totally different image. So we've got goblins going from simple mischief makers to these complex characters with their own motivations and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then you have Terry Pratchett's Discworld series.
No.
In those books, goblins are initially kind of outcasts, but then they end up getting recognition for their skills and they become a part of society.
A nice little story of acceptance.
Yeah.
But goblins show up in unexpected places too, right?
Oh, yeah. What about Spider-Man's Green Goblin?
Oh, yeah.
Eh.
Norman Osborn driven crazy by that goblin formula stuff.
A classic comic book villain origin story, but it taps into that darker side of goblin lore, doesn't it?
It does. And let's not forget video games. Like in the Elder Scrolls, you've got goblins as these hostile creatures living in all the creepy caves and sewers.
Oh, yeah, they're perfect for those games, adding that element of danger. And sometimes their presence is a bit more subtle, even funny. Did you know those early translations of the Smurfs actually called them goblins?
Really? That's hilarious. But it makes you wonder what other hidden goblins might be out there.
It really does. But before we wrap things up, let's bring it back to the real world. Did you know there are actual places named after goblins?
Wait, what? You mean like real-life goblin locations?
Yeah. In France, there's the Gap of Goblin, which is this mysterious hole and tunnel system shrouded in local legend. Then you've got England with places like Hobroyd, which means goblin clearing, and the even spookier Goblin Combe.
They sound straight out of those fairy tales.
They really do, and it doesn't stop there. Utah's got Goblin Valley State Park with all its crazy rock formations.
Oh, wow. Okay. I need to add these places to my travel list. Are there any more?
Plenty. Scotland's especially fond of goblins. There's Yester Castle, often called Goblin Hall, and even places like Cowcaddens and Cowlairs, which get their names from the old Scots word for goblin cow. And get this, even space has a goblin.
Wait, what? Like a goblin constellation?
Even cooler, there's this object in the outer solar system they found a few years back that they nicknamed the Goblin, all because of its distant and kind of weird orbit.
Wow. That's incredible. From ancient stories to modern discoveries, goblins have really made their mark, haven't they?
They really have. After all that goblin lore, I'm kind of speechless. Who knew they were so diverse and interesting?
Right. It's been quite a journey, going from mischievous little tricksters to powerful sorcerers, bloodthirsty fiends, and even helpful household spirits.
Yeah, they've worn a lot of hats over the years. But underneath it all, there's something about them that really sticks with us.
Yeah, it's like they show us all those different sides of ourselves, good and bad, and everything in between.
Exactly. They're a mix of, repulsive and endearing, terrifying and funny.
All at the same time.
And I think that's what keeps us so interested. We're drawn to their, mystery, that unpredictable nature. They challenge how we see the world and remind us that not everything can be perfectly explained or categorized.
It's true. They represent that wild side of us that we kind of both fear and admire.
Yeah, that part of us that doesn't always follow the rules. And maybe that's why they're still so popular in stories and, across different cultures and time periods.
It makes sense.
They remind us there's more to the world than what we see on the surface. That magic and mystery are still out there, even when things feel kind of ordinary and predictable. Goblins bring that chaos and wander back in.
I love that. It's like they're giving us permission to embrace the unexpected, to look at things from a different angle,
Yeah, to tap into that little bit of goblin we all have inside.
Exactly.
They make us question what we think we know, remind us that things aren't always what they seem. And I think that's a good thing. It keeps us curious, keeps us engaged with the world.
I agree. Goblins may be small, but they've had a huge impact on our culture.
They really have.
Well, thanks for taking us on this incredible journey through the world of goblins.
It's been my pleasure.
And hey, everyone, keep an eye on those shadows. You never know when a goblin might be lurking around ready to stir up a little mischief or magic. Until next time, folks.